In this video, we're going to demonstrate another method for fast strapping, specifically called the shoulder hitch. This is just one more technique that a rescuer can use for quickly attaching webbing to a victim to assist with their extraction. One of the big advantages of the shoulder hitch, and the method that we're going to be demonstrating for applying it, is that it allows the rescuer to hold on to the webbing throughout the process. This makes it extremely fast and efficient, especially when working in reduced visibility, as the rescuer never has to completely let go of the webbing. Now, there are multiple applications for using the shoulder hitch for victim extraction, including during firefighting search and rescue operations, for an R.T.F. or rescue task force, as well as a T.E.M.S. or Tactical Emergency Medical Services team. In a previous video, we demonstrated another method called girth hitching, or which is sometimes referred to as a chest hitch. This is another fast technique for applying webbing to a victim for victim extraction. However, it does create some concerns. Number one, the way the webbing is applied, it can create a cinch point that can be extremely uncomfortable on conscious victims. A second concern is if you're not careful while dragging the victim and making turns, there's a much greater chance of flipping the victim over onto their face, which is the last thing we want to do. One advantage of the shoulder hitch over the girth or chest hitch is that it creates a cinch point in a location that's less stressful and more comfortable on conscious victims. The other advantage of the shoulder hitch while dragging is that it greatly reduces the chance of flipping the victim over onto their face, even when making aggressive 90 and 180 degree turns. The shoulder hitch works well for both 1 and 2 firefighter drags. In this situation, a single firefighter is holding onto the webbing as well as a thermal imaging camera. In a T.E.M.S. situation, rescuers can hold onto a weapon if other members are unavailable to provide cover. When dealing with a large or heavy victim, rescuers can split the webbing in order to share the weight during the drag. When working in a reduced area, such as a narrow hallway, rescuers can perform what's called a webbing extraction offset, in which a second webbing loop is attached to the first. This allows the rescuers to reduce their profile while at the same time sharing the weight of the victim. In certain situations, you may need to take up excess webbing to shorten the loop. To do this, rotate your hands around the webbing while placing bites into your palm. If necessary, repeat the procedure until you've collected up the necessary webbing. This technique can be beneficial to reduce the friction of the victim while dragging, as well as to elevate and protect their head and shoulders when pulling the victim up a stairwell. Start by kneeling at the victim's head while facing their feet. Locate your webbing and deploy it until the water knot completely clears your pocket. Your left hand will end up at a center point opposite of the water knot. Allow the webbing loop to open up and then place your right hand immediately adjacent to your left. Both hands now should be in an overhand grip. Take your left hand and slide it away from your right about 1.5 feet. While keeping this section of webbing tensioned, come underneath the victim's left hand and slide the webbing up the arm until you reach the armpit. Let go of the webbing in your left hand at the top of the victim's shoulder and place your left hand immediately adjacent to your right. Now both hands are back at a center point opposite of the water knot in an overhand grip. Slide your right hand away from your left, again about 1.5 feet, and take this section of webbing underneath the right hand, up the arm, and wedge it into the right armpit. The left hand should be in an overhand grip and the right hand should be in an underhand grip at the top of the victim's right shoulder. Take the webbing in your left hand and lift it off the victim's chest as you allow the webbing to slide through your right until the water knot reaches your palm. The knot should end up at the base of your fingers. Now take the webbing in your left hand, come over the water knot and place it in your right palm near the wrist. Grab the water knot with your left hand Close your right hand around the remaining section of webbing and bring it underneath the victim's head behind their neck. The big advantage of finishing with the water knot is that it allows better indexing and a more positive feel of the webbing in your hand. An added benefit is if you would accidentally drop the webbing when working in poor visibility, it's going to be much easier to relocate it by feeling for the bulk of the water knot, which again is away from the body. Once you resecure the webbing, you can proceed with your drag. If you want to be able to execute what we demonstrate in this video, you're going to need a 5.5 foot webbing loop, which is made from a 12.5 foot length of 1-inch tubular webbing. I prefer to store the webbing loop in a straight roll, starting with the water knot. Now, if you've never tied a water knot before, I actually have another YouTube video that demonstrates exactly how to do this, and I'll include a link to it in the description of this video. The color that I recommend is a really bright yellow. However, depending on the manufacturer, each one labels it a little differently. For instance, Blue Water calls it a fluorescent yellow, while PMI refers to it as a fluorescent green. Now, neither one of these manufacturers actually includes reflective fibers in their webbing. It's just a super bright color that pops and stands out in the low light or reduced visibility conditions that we would encounter while firefighting. And obviously, being able to see the webbing in these types of conditions is essential. To store the webbing, make sure that the tails of the water knot are coming out on top. Also look for the indexing of the webbing itself, in this case the dotted lines. Pair everything together and then start rolling the webbing up just like you would a section of fire hose. While you're doing this, try to keep it as tight and compact as possible. One option, if you have a radio pocket, is to store the webbing loop inside of it. A nice way to secure the tail is to take the flap of the pocket and run it right through it. As long as it's Velcro and doesn't have a snap, your webbing loop will deploy very efficiently. Another option is putting the webbing loop in your pants pocket with the tail coming out the front end or out the back. I hope you found this video beneficial. If you did, feel free to subscribe. My name's Dale PEKEL. Thanks for watching.